Welcome to Life Support Live, the weekly show that explores how Star Trek can help us to boldly go in our own lives to better ourselves and the rest of humanity.
Yes, as a famous starship captain once said, and as another famous starship captain once said, wherever our mission takes us, we'll try to have a little fun along the way.
Hello, everyone. I am psychologist Dr. Ali Matu.
Yes, and I am Dr. Trek, Larry Nemechek. One of us is a real doctor.
We'll leave it to you to determine who that might be. Larry, is your doctorate from the Starfleet Academy or is it from the Daystrom Institute? I've always wondered that.
I went to a state school. I have to...
I think Starfleet Academy is a state school.
I went to Rigel 7 Tech. I have to...
Yeah.
Anyway,
I hear they have a very strong program in warp core mechanics. History and journalism, I'm not quite sure about their program for that.
Well, they have a lot of they have a lot of fun Kalar to hang out with there, so I'll just say that.
Hello, everyone. By popular demand, this week, we're talking about pets.
It's one comment last week, but it was a cool comment.
It was a very popular comment. So we're talking about pets, but before we get to that, Larry, if this is the first time folks might be joining us, what is Life Support Live?
Well, I want to say, as I say this, if we have anybody coming over to us from virtual Penguicon, which normally would be in north of Detroit, in Michigan, but virtual, it can be anywhere. So welcome over. We're an official event of Penguicon where I am frozen in amber forever, apparently, as a guest of honor. So thanks for if you were coming over to us from Virtual Con and maybe you did last year and you finding us again a year later, jump into the chat. It's mostly warm and friendly in there, but wherever you're joining us from, yeah, we boldly go through uncertain times every week here since the pandemic started.
They keep being uncertain. They keep being uncertain, Larry, as much as we try to make them more certain.
Even when they get better, better is not necessarily certain. So
That's true.
We have a tagline that will work for all eras. We're looking at Star Trek through a mental health lens, mental health through a Star Trek lens, and don't be scared when I say mental health, because Ali's not very scary looking.
No, although my shirt today might be a little bit. It's a skeleton astronaut in space. Space. Yeah, we also we look at Larry through an Ali lens. We look at Ali through a Larry lens. We look at the audience through a host lens, and a host lens looking at the audience. It's a very interplexing type of show.
It's a septulensability-istic show. Yes, it is. But we have a lot of fun. What hopefully we all wind up with is a better understanding of ourselves. We have fun doing it, of Star Trek, as some daily takeaways from Dr. Ali. We actually have structure and names for all this too. His counselor's log. Yeah. We have an away mission for you. I'll have some K3 factors, and we'll deep dive a little Star Trek under this theme. And and today's going to be an especially fun one, I hope. I think we can all use it's all. I feel like it's a virtual hug, even that's probably what a lot of people get out of the show. I feel like today's going to be especially that direction.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And Larry, Zahir,
the chat is already busting.
Chat is already busting. Zahir is not a fan of your alma mater. He says their psychology program sucks. They still teach plexing. Over at over there.
I'm the one with the problem with plexing. So
that's true. Yeah, that's true.
I think the science of clear plastics has a big role in today's society, especially the transparent aluminum.
They've got a very strong transparent aluminum program. I hear a whole program in transparent aluminum.
They claim it's all really just a big put on. They said they can see right through it. So.
Well. I'm glad you're not being opaque with me, Larry. Charlotte says, speaking of Penguicon, isn't Larry usually frozen? And there's a little bit of healthy debate going on about my shirt. Scott says, I think your shirt is a Space 1999 episode, or 3 of them. Karen thinks it's a Doctor Who episode. And Libby says, brings new meaning to Space, the Final Frontier. This, I think
I mentioned Stephen Ritchie from I can't believe I pulled his name out of my ass, but from the Royale.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I honestly think whoever made this shirt likes all of those things and just thought it'd be cool to put, because it doesn't obviously
Yeah.
read like
You know
anything. It
what?
was actually from a sci-fi bookstore in New York City called Singularity and Co., but they're no longer in business, sadly.
I was going to say that actually looked like some small convention's artist guest of honors T-shirt that they stripped off the convention name and it's been selling it, or she's been selling it over the years. That's what looks like something right out of the '90s. Yeah.
I could see her doing it. Cece, who was the owner of that. Scott's asking, did Ollie go to the Psychology Institute of Beta Z? I did spend a year studying abroad on Beta Z, and it was quite delightful.
No, bad.
Oh,
That's where
man.
they plex, you know. She said
I
it was-
know, I know. I had vigorous debates with my professors about plexing. Larry, let's open up that briefing room, shall
Okay.
we? This is the part of the show where
Did we
we.
even say what oh, there it is. I said, did we even say what the theme was?
Oh yeah, it's pets, didn't we say? Did I say? Someone said. But folks, speaking of pets, let us know, who is your favorite pet from The Final Frontier, from Star Trek? Let us know in the comments. Larry,
Something we can get our arms around. Yeah.
we always talk about how we take topics that might have some kind of everyday relevance to this world that we live in, and pets are sort of they're a constant companion, if you will, when it comes to these kind of things. So the relevance is easy here, and whether you have a pet, you love animals, you don't have a pet, you dislike animals. I think this is going to be a fun show. Where do we start? Because there's so many. Once I started looking into this, there's a lot.
Well, there's like a million though. That's why I said this is like a topic I feel like we can get our arms around, and it'll feel so good when we do. There's a lot of pets in Star Trek, but there's not a billion of them. So I think we'll have a lot of fun today. I just want to say, just an early shout out here to Charlotte. She said she's so happy to be here. She had a nightmare this morning that she slept through today's show. It was awful. Oh, Charlotte, I'm so sorry, but you're
Charlotte,
here.
I forgot. I was going to mention this. Larry, I had a dream that
One day. Oh no.
no, I had a dream that we were doing life support live. Like this
What a
is. I had a dream that you own this history archive somewhere. I couldn't tell if it was L.A. or if it was San Diego, but you had this warehouse that you turned into a archive of stuff, and behind your warehouse was a restaurant. And what we would do, we would take people through a tour of the archives, and then we'd go. What's that?
I said Frozen. Would we do this Frozen? Because apparently I'm frozen.
You are, and we did not do it Frozen. Although I did leave. My dream did get cut out halfway. But we would do the tour through your warehouse, and then whoever owned the restaurant in the back. Hey, you're back.
That was only a kick. Okay. Yes.
Whoever owned the restaurant would let us do Life Support Live there weekly, and then all of our lifers would come. We'd have a meal and talk, and then we'd do a watch along. And in this dream, we were doing a watch along of Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country. So that was my dream.
Wow.
So Jared,
For some,
I found a place for our retreat.
What was the name of the restaurant? Now I want to know.
I don't know, but you didn't own the restaurant. Someone else,
Right.
a woman owned it who was very generous to us. And
Well,
let
that
us...
would be crazy if I owned the restaurant behind my big Star Trek museum archive. That would be silly.
So yeah, that was my dream. So Charlotte, you had the nightmare about missing Life Support Live, and I had quite the opposite dream.
Ollie had the nightmare of not being able to escape it. So like doing the life support live cruise. There's nowhere to go.
You're just the life support live cruise. My goodness, that would be a lot of fun. All right, so Larry, where would you like to start in our journey? Oh gosh,
A very good place to start. Yeah. Was it
Tate August says, was it Warehouse 47?
How could it not? I mean,
Good one.
It would be Warehouse 74 just to be tricky. Yeah.
So Larry, take it away. Where should we start off our journey?
I didn't do an image on this one, but it just dawned on me. I think this counts. We could even start with the cage and go with Tango and Mary Sue, who is the horse that is not named in the cage. Is Vena's human appearing, picnic mate's horse was named Mary Sue, but that got cut it's in the script, but it's not set. But I don't know.
That's a good choice.
I
think that's a good choice, especially since last week we did the cage in celebration of our 1-year anniversary here. By the way, Larry, what are you supposed to get for your co-host on the 1-year anniversary? I haven't been able to like a little piece of dilithium. Like what am I supposed to get you for our anniversary?
A little piece of I think isn't first anniversary in the 24th century dichronium.
That'll work.
Duranide anniversary, isn't it?
That'll work.
Tritanium anniversary. I don't know.
No, but that sounds that's a good place to start. As any horses. Do most people classify horses as pets?
See, well, I mean, that's what I'm saying, and we've come along. Not 100 years ago or 200 years ago, it wouldn't have been. But
no,
I don't know if you have.
It would have been a vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, if you have them there and you have a relationship with it, and you love horses live 15, 20 years or more. So
what?
I don't know. That stood out there, but otherwise, there's not a lot of pets in the original series. You sent me one, and I gave it to after you sent me the one that we had the image of. No, I mean, I had an image of one that I wondered if we should even call that a pet. But I don't know. You've got Gary Seven and Isis there, but then it's like, Tango is one thing, but is Isis? If Isis is, what's the true form of Isis? The cat, or is it human form Isis that we now know is April Tatro, the actress? I don't know. These are interesting calls here to begin with, and we have more traditional pets coming. The original series wasn't very pet filled. I mean, we all think of the canine dog, the dog from Alpha 177, but that wasn't anybody's pet. That was a native bit. So,
yeah. I didn't think we would have such a difficult question to begin with here, like existential questions about what makes a pet a pet. And like I
got the Beach Boys pet sounds over here if you want me to.
Oh, that would be in keeping, and then we'd be taken down for copyright violations. No, I
wasn't part of what I thought.
Well, can we do a little
skip ahead to the next generation?
My friend, I would like to evoke a saying known across the universe. I would like to add some texture, not trivia, to this.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Let me write that down.
Yeah. Take some notes.
I'm gonna use that.
I'll give you that freebie. Let's try to understand why there weren't many pets on 1701 No Bloody A, B, C, or D. Because we did have pets.
Wrangling fees were much higher in the 60s.
Maybe. That's more of a K3 texture there. Yeah. But we know, and we'll get to this beloved pet in a moment. We know the NX-01 had a pet. We know that. Mm-hmm. We know one of our first captains had a pet. Now, why might 1701 not? I've got an idea. This idea, we'll have to figure out how it negotiates with NX-01 Enterprise. It could be that the 1701 Enterprise under Kirk was going to so many frontiers, so many new areas, that bringing animal life could have been a liability on that starship, or it could introduce a unstable element that might have created problems. Whereas for the NX-01, they didn't have many rules or regulations back then, and they sort of no ship had ever ventured out, and so they were willing to do for the crew whatever made them feel more comfortable. I don't know, Larry. What are you thinking?
Well, it just hit me. I think the thing here is Ensign Jablonski, who was around for the second or third season, had a cat.
Mm-hmm.
But it very sadly died after the whole thing at K7 with the triples.
Oh.
Because it just overstuffed itself, and then it got a hold of a couple of bad triples. And after that, it was just so tragic. Nobody could bring themselves to have a pet aboard after that was such a sad occasion. And we didn't see that because, it was a kid's show and we didn't talk about the dead pet.
Hey, that could be it.
I totally spitball that. I can tell you're shocked, but
well,
it's interesting though that but to K through this just a bit, Gene, this was such a started off to be such a square-jawed military show that he was a little upset with Gene Coon for bringing in as much humor as they did. So and a pet necessarily isn't humorous. Okay, Porthos and Spot. But it's soft and it's figuratively soft and fuzzy, and that might have been a little softer and fuzzier than 60s Gene wanted his Star Trek to be. So I don't know. We have more examples getting on forward, but it is an interesting. I never stopped to think about this.
This is what I do, Larry. I stop you and force you to think about things that are probably not worth your time anyways. No, but I do want to say, Charlotte says,
I'm glad we finally figured out a role for you on the show. That's great.
Charlotte says, who's to say all cats aren't aliens like ISIS who change form when we aren't looking? So here, Charlotte, I think this is a little bit of texture, not trivia moment here. What if the idea here, Larry, is Kirk actually believed we can't have pets on the Enterprise because we're going to be hosting all these alien species, and if they see us enslaving animals, that this could introduce diplomatic problems.
This gets into a whole thing later on. Now, I thought we're going to have this simple, warm and fuzzy topic today.
It'll be warm, it's going to be fuzzy, but not simple, Larry. When are two or more people talking about Star Trek ever simple?
That's true. You are reminding me of two or three wrinkles in this, even more than I was thinking. Well, so we should. I don't know. I don't know about everybody else. Have we overlooked somebody from the original series? Everybody's bopping in the chat here, and I am.
No, I mean, folks are talking about
by Scott, but I got officially unfrozen. I did the simplest thing and got unfrozen. I was in shock. So there we go.
Nice.
When I was
one thing to say that Karen said here before we move on is the original is only Starfleet, no pets, no family. So that could be another reason why. Karen, that might be a little bit of an Occam's razor to my needlessly complex debate here. Larry, we can move forward. People are talking about animated series, and people are also talking about Star Trek Enterprise. So do you want to move forward or back?
Ish, yeah. So the animated is wonderful because it was a flashback.
Let's go animated.
But you've got Spock and Ichaya, his Selleck.
My favorite episode of the animated series
in Journey to Babel, and of course it's when he's a kid, not in real time. Or is there such a concept as real time when you're dealing with the Guardian?
It's all relative. There's too many wrinkles in time, Larry.
Mm-hmm. Time is, yeah. I won't go there. So
no, say it. It's the fire in which we burn.
No, I don't have time to talk about time. Let's move ahead. It's not our topic.
Oh.
So like the way I just blended that in? Okay.
I'm a big fan of all of your blending, Larry.
Anyways, yeah, Ichaya. But I should notice that is a mention, not a visual. But it was mentioned in the original series. Dorothy got that.
It was, yeah. Okay. And I think Spock.
A teddy
Spock
bear?
correct. Yeah. Says a teddy bear with 6-inch fangs, or what did he say?
Yeah.
Something like that.
On
yeah.
Vulcan. the teddy bears are large and have 6-inch fangs.
And then you see in the animated series, it does kind of look like a giant teddy bear with fangs. If you look at it again, it's exactly what that description was.
Which comes from I think it was Greg Jean's drawing that Bijo had in the concordance. It was like and then the animator took that fan art and made it. Thank you, Aaron Harvey. I didn't know that till he did his book, but
I love that episode for a lot of reasons. It's if you haven't seen that episode, Yesteryear, it is heavily borrowed for the 2009 Star Trek movie. Some of the ideas there,
and Discovery,
yeah. Good point. But I love this idea that Spock had this companion. And if we think about the role of pets, this is where, Larry, I'm going to get a little counselor loggy. If you think about Spock as someone who has been, no pun intended, a little alienated on his own planet, he is most likely the only human Vulcan child on Vulcan. He potentially has been teased, bullied, isolated, all of these things. You can understand the role that a animal companion would play for Spock. The companionship, the love, the support that you see in Yesteryear. You think about the role that his pet had in his life, and it was probably tremendous, Larry. A tremendous source of support. And then you get the stepsister coming in, or not stepsister, adopted sister, foster sister. Like, Spock is just like, I need my own space. I need my own thing. And
don't forget his dad's other partner's foster brother that bops in.
Yeah. Yeah, and that guy's all like, hey, let's feel emotions. And Spock's like, So, we
can't officially mention her, but I don't want you to mention me at all. Unofficially.
I know. I'm like, seriously, folks, there's so many the family tree there for Spock's family is it's pretty,
Well, my understanding of Sarek just gets weirder and weirder as the decades go by. But anyway, yes.
Yeah, I think all of ours.
The nicest manipulator in galactic history. But anyway.
Oh man.
It's Ollie. Yes.
Scott says.
Sorry, and to see a tragic story of a pet, a young person, and all that. Spoilers. Spock is only.
Yes, Scott says Spock is only half alienated.
He's related on the left side. I'm alienated on the right side.
Speaking to that, kind of going a little K3 here, Larry. This was the animated series, and I'm assuming that they had more of a child audience in mind, right? For the anime. Right. So you can also see the role that Yesteryear would play for children, for them to identify with another character who has a pet, and also to see. I think this is where children's stories are so important. Is like Mr. Rogers has done in the United States and Sesame Street has done around the world. They give kids the language and vocabulary to understand difficult topics, like the loss of a pet, which I wasn't going to talk about this, but a lot of the research has shown that losing a pet is as bad, if not worse, than losing a loved one, a human loved one. These are very tough feelings to go through. So I love that. I love all the things that Yesteryear does. One of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, and when you consider the fact that wasn't the first one done, but it was the first one aired. So
really, I didn't know that.
Wait. It wasn't. Okay, I'm gonna go back. I know that Beyond the Farthest Star was the first one. Okay, I'm gonna shut up until I check this. Somebody in the chat's going to. I'm not as up on. Anyway, but it was an early script, and it was Dorothy's first. It was out of the gate, and I had forgotten about the whole fact of Saturday. They were conscious of kids, and heaven forbid, going to a planet with Lucifer laughing at you, is such a, or the Pilgrims and having everybody in stockades. I mean, I was rewatching animated series recently, and it's like, wow, they were really kind of pushing the envelope.
Oh yeah. I
As
mean, it was the 70s. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of pushing of envelopes happening
Well, now go outside and play. Drive your bike across town and come back.
yeah.
Get some exercise. Yeah.
Um,
Anyway,
Charlotte says, not going to lie, for people who eschew their emotions so much, Sarek and Spock's family drama would make for a great soap opera. Definitely would watch. Star Trek.
We could call it Green Shadows. Vulcan Goth.
That's good. It's good, Larry. Right up that
followed by a green shadow.
Green shadow.
Shadow.
Write that treatment, send it to Paramount, and let's bring me on as a executive producer,
What's
please.
the plus in Paramount Plus? Okay.
Okay, and moving page 2. Moving right along here.
Wow, Paul Harvey.
Paul
Wow.
Harvey. I'm just
Put in the chat if you even know who Paul Harvey is.
I appreciate you even recognizing that one.
In my book, the chat is over here, but you're always putting the chat down there, so I'll do your thing. Anyway.
I actually have it placed on my monitor, right? Why am I There it is. It's placed right over there.
Mine's over there.
But I think most people see it down here.
Well, that's I decide that must be the universal sign for put it in the chat.
Yeah. Or as my friends at the Vlog Brothers say in the doobly doo is how they say it. Okay, so Larry, I think people
as the years go by, and maybe somebody else has come up with a lot of. Oh, Libby is saying horses can be a pet. A retired or not ridden horse is a pasture pet.
Oh.
She has a friend who has a blind horse who is a pasture pet.
Oh.
Okay, and who am I to argue with Libby about horses? So there we go.
Yeah, or Ferengi.
Or Ferengi horses.
Do not argue with Libby about any of those things. Larry, the overwhelming comments. There's two animals here that are getting an overwhelming amount of comments. So I think we should explore them. And the first one here is Porthos.
Well, oh, okay. You're going to jump to Enterprise, huh? Okay.
I'm going to jump to Enterprise because people keep wanting to talk about Porthos. And this is actually an image from 2 Days, 2 Nights.
Right, 2 days and 2 nights. Yeah, and the lady person that Archer runs into has her own little pet dog. So apparently, pets and canine pets are a galactic constant, at least in some places.
Yeah,
at least near space.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I want to talk about here. Charlotte was a fan of Porthos, saying Porthos is such a good dog. Tate also says that Porthos, hands down, he had more airtime. He does have a lot of airtime, more than
4 seasons off and on versus Spot, who only had a couple, really.
Yeah. And Spot's the other one. Victoria said Porthos. Glinda said Spot and Porthos. And Glinda also said, I'm still waiting for the adventures of Porthos.
Captain Porthos.
Yeah. Paula says Porthos is second in line. And Tim was also, as a dog lover, a fan of Porthos. Nothing against cats, which are special in their own way.
Well, isn't that...
And we have a lot of love for both Porthos and Spot.
Well, they kind of are the big two. And, until Enterprise, it was Spot. Spot had the spotlight only to himself. And so good on... I think the creation of Porthos was meant to show... It's funny because we were talking about the original series not having family, so they were a little spare on anything spare. But
yeah,
I think having the animals was a little bit of trying to predate Enterprise, like the whole thing with the NASA jumpsuit. Make it closer to us and break it down.
Christoph has a great theory here. Porthos gets pets banned from starships for 2 centuries. I think that's a really great theory, and if in at least in the Kelvin timeline, we know Porthos experiences a tragedy where Scotty has accidentally beamed him away and not been able to get him back.
Well, they say Admiral Archer's dog or whatever, so it's kind of like, is it Porthos the Fifth or something, or
Right,
or
right.
Did Phlox come up with some kind of lifespan extending?
If I remember, they did say Scotty does say Archer's beagle.
Yeah.
So
yes,
it could be like another.
My point was another, not the original Porthos. Or
it could be like Simpsons style. It's Snowball 2.
Something sad.
Right.
Yes.
It could be a clone. It could be
Sim Porthos.
Yeah. So I think you nailed it here. Porthos to me represents companionship for Archer. It does represent connection to Earth. It does represent some sense of continuity as they're going out into this frontier. We know astronauts right now, they do bring in little pieces of home with them. Now they're not allowed to bring pets with them to the space station. Although if they could, I think they would. I think those dogs would be or cats would be very unhappy in 0G. Yeah. Cats especially, I think, would be like really annoyed at zero G. Just
depends on when they were born and who brought them. It depends on their upbringing. Yeah.
Right.
Well, both too, right?
Right.
Now, if they were born, now here's the thing: the second or third generation of like Earth science might be like taking some small animals, and I mean, they have like rats and hamsters and all that kind of white mice kind of a thing. Have we had white mice type experiments in orbit? Yeah, I mean, they've had ants and those kind of things, but that just maybe somebody knows. I just maybe stop to think. I don't know if we've had white mice in space station orbit, I don't think any of the crewed missions that were shorter duration were long enough to mess with it. So I don't know, maybe so. But maybe in 20 or 30, 50 years, we get to the point where they're doing experiments to see. Because I'd be curious to see what animals born in space in higher animals.
Yeah. I mean,
cat and dog level, what their reaction to being born in null gravity would be.
I love how The Expanse deals with that idea and shows how humans would develop differently if they're born in different levels of gravity. So I think there would be massive implications for fetal development and for all in utero development and all the stuff after.
Development.
Yeah. So it's an interesting idea. Although we probably have some big NASA and space, real space knowledgeable folks in the community here. So let us know if you.
Right.
Yeah, if there's been any animal research in space, but there's a few comments here that I thought were really relevant here. If I can find them.
Well, Christoph had a good point here that why doesn't the Universal Translator work on pets? Because Doctor Who's TARDIS translates animals.
It's a really good point. It's a really good point. Why does it? I've never thought about that. Why doesn't it, Larry?
I just we call that the Snoopy factor. It's like, let's just see all the word balloons from all the pets.
Charlotte says a shout out to the Mirror Universe Porthos in Rottweiler form. I thought that two-parter is just so good. They nail everything from the alternate intro to just the finale and where that goes. I love that two-parter.
Some say that Inner Mirror Darkly is their favorite Enterprise episode, period. So, which kind of blows the whole, my favorite DS9 episodes are Tribulations and Little Green Men and,
right.
One Small Ship and, all the oddball, the oddball DS9s are some people's favorite episodes. So, Our Man Bashir and the one in the 50s, that little thing.
Scott says, Scott says Admiral Archer's supply of beagles might be like the Queen's never-ending supply of corgis. I could definitely see that. And as he was the first president of the Federation, he can do whatever he wants. Louise has a bit of a dig here. I prefer Porthos to Captain Archer. Ouch! Ooh! But you know what? Everyone loves a beagle, unless they're howling, which I gotta imagine, Larry.
See, yeah.
On the NX-01, that's a little ship. That beagle's howling. Like, forget T'Pol and the smell that she was having a hard time with. I'd have a hard time falling asleep with all the ow. I mean, that was more of a wolf, but the beagles have a
dum dum. Hey there, Little Red Riding. Okay, I'm sorry. I just went to Little Red Riding Hood there for a second. Okay.
I was going to Hungry Like the Wolf, but
okay,
well, different eras, very different eras.
The actual howl sounded like Wolfman Jack or something. But yes.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So we're all about Porthos. That's interesting, though. I like. You know what? The more I think about that, I like that Porthos got pets banned on ships for doing.
I know. That's a really good. I mean, he did eat a lot of cheese, and the cheese.
Yeah. He did a lot of cheese, man.
Folks, cheese on a starship. If we've learned anything from Voyager, it's keep cheese away from starships.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Get that cheese to sick bay. You might be stuck in the Delta Quadrant and have no recourse. No, but here's the thing. If that's true, I want to know who undid that policy. Who came along to undo it? Obviously, it was Picard and Livingston.
Well,
Besides its own story, actually. But anyway.
Well, yeah. We do you want to go there? Do you want to jump to Picard then? Not Star Trek Picard, but Next Generation.
Yeah, because we have the other one. Yeah, no, it's an interesting story that it's almost like one of those things that probably started a set like they designed the thing. Somebody says, let's get some piece of organic human life. What's an easy thing we can do? Oh, we have a little budget. Let's put a fish tank in Picard's ready room. Let's put this exotic fish in. Okay. And then it takes, and this has just dawned on me. I've never read about there's nothing in the Bibles of Next Generation, the writing guides that say, and Picard has a fish. Things that just started and somebody said, sure. Okay. And then it became a thing. You know, there's a fish in there, and then like directors would have characters walk over and look at the tank or, you know, reference. And then after a while, it became a thing. And then it got infamous because there were some weekend. It would be these expensive tropical lionfish that needed a heated tank. And there were a couple of weekends when they'd turn all the lights off. You know, they'd slam all the breakers off and cut off the heating tank. And the fish died. They came back Monday and the fish had died. And they were like, you know, $1,000 fish. And they're like, oh. Well, let's just put something there to I mean, that happened once or twice in the early seasons, but they would so that you'd see some episodes where there was never a camera on the fish tank.
Yeah.
You watch they're in the ready room, like they never show the aquarium for a while, but then it's there, and then people want to. So the next time they have a budget cycle come around, they would buy one, and then because the writers like everybody thinks about the fish, and the whole Livingston thing was the on-set nickname. It was never that in canon, but that's what because it would rile up like supposedly David Livingston did when people wanted to go overtime or buy an extra camera or something. And he was like, no, you can't do it. And so that was like the lionfish reaction. But then it became a thing. But the bottom line of this whole story is on the F, they designed a standalone set piece with the aquarium in it. And
you mean
by
the
that
E?
time,
E.
I said the E.
You said the F. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the F was a whole different thing. No, the E, they're doing the walkthrough, and everybody's walking through sets. And Patrick, you know, it's not somebody throws it in and does it on a blueprint, and it becomes a thing. Now it's become a thing, and Patrick says, I really don't think, which is interesting now, I really don't think Picard would have a captive animal. Now, I just dawned on me that he said that and then pushed for the creation of number one on Picard. But I'm thinking that that's a dog running free in a big manner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you told me that, I think
which I jumped. So there's a little mini K3 for you. There would have been a fish tank with Livingstone or his successor. I've had people go, did Livingston die in the crash of the D?
Livingston survived whatever that planet, Viridian 3, was
Viridian.
it? Yeah. So he survived the crash, or she, or they, I don't know. But this is actually a technically, Larry, to be a little nitpicky. This is a mini K3 replay. You told us this during our first contact viewing,
okay.
And it stuck with me. Because I think I'm going to have to agree with Sir Patrick on this. I don't see Captain Picard holding a fish captive in such a small tank, being so alone. Now, you can have some headcanon that maybe that little bulb is connected to a larger ecosystem that gets it to the whales that are on the Enterprise.
Now I want to go look at blueprints and see which wall of the ready room that was. If it was the exterior wall.
Right, like maybe we're talking Sequest DSV style, and Darwin is there, but Darwin can freely go. Darwin can go anywhere Darwin wants to.
Well, Livingston has a direct. You're right. You know what? Has anyone gone here?
No, but we are.
Livingston has a direct access pipeline down about 15 decks down to the dolphin tank.
Yes. And this is the reason why you don't see Livingston in certain episodes.
Feet free.
It's not that Livingston died off screen because they forgot to turn off the lights. It's that Livingston is down talking to the dolphins, and they all can talk because of universal translators, which you just don't see on screen because, reasons. So, yeah, unless that's the case, I don't see Patrick Stewart or Captain Picard having fish. I do see Captain Picard having a dog because they're companions and they're in more of a mutualistic type of relationship. Because do we ever really see Captain Picard looking at Livingston, like, or interacting with Livingston,
like going over and stroking the tank or something?
Yeah, or like talking or just like looking. I don't.
Hey boy. Yeah.
Ding, I don't. I think he was probably super annoyed during the 7 years that there was a fish in the tank.
Really, Admiral. It's a soft order that I have to have.
Oh man.
Enough clout at the time. Yeah. No, but so it's interesting though, thinking about Picard and number one, the K9, that what's the breed? He intentionally wanted a
pug?
No, they get blamed for being so violent. That's why. Oh, come on! Somebody in the chat will.
Oh, yeah.
Rottweiler, because you said Rottweiler a while ago. And
I'm blanking on their name.
Thank you. Let's get Pitbull. Thank you, Charlotte.
A pitbull. Yes.
God, I couldn't think of a pitbull. Pit fighting. They wanted to have a dog for Picard as a canine companion in his loneliness. He's retired. He's shut off from the world. I don't know, two Romulan ex-spies are on the same, or a little bit above number one there. But anyway, and then Sir Patrick said, let's make it a pit bull because I want to make a statement about them being loving and kind and all that. And so that was his own activism there. But
And he's adopted many dogs.
They said, we're going to give Picard a dog, and he said, okay, then let's make it a pit bull.
Well, and Sir Patrick has adopted many dogs and cared for many dogs in his life. So I think I think it's everything coming full circle there. I wish we saw a little bit more of number one.
And I caught up and saw all 47 of you saying pit bulls, so thanks everybody.
Yeah, Glinda says Sir Patrick does pit rescue, so it's near and
For the love of God, it's a pit bull. Melody, everybody is screaming pit bull.
So
everybody.
I'm with Zahir here. They only had the pit bull in the first episode, though. I wish we got more number one. I mean, I know we get to number one.
I know he quickly goes away, but yeah.
See, he doesn't quickly go away. Hold on. He doesn't leave Earth for like 3 hours.
When there's a new Star Trek series coming and they show you footage, just know that 90% of what you're seeing in all that footage is going to go away. That they're only showing you pilot, whatever it is.
Right. No, that's true.
Half those people are going to die or just be left behind. So
that's true.
Don't get so excited about when they show you the new show coming, because it's like you go back and watch all the Farpoint things. It's all like shooting at this Bandy City, and it's like what. It's like the stuff is all going away and you'll never see it again. It's always amazing to go back and look at. It's not like, hey, here's the promo for the pilot. It's like, here's the promo for the season, the new show. Well, no, it's like the first 60 minutes of the new show, stuff you will never again think about in most of the time. Because the really cool stuff they won't give you in the teaser anyway. So in the promo anyway. So anyway.
So we need, speaking of TNG, there's another beloved pet that Larry, did you send me an image for this pet? I don't think you did.
There's what I mentioned it in passing. Other people have mentioned another pet from Next Generation though.
Yeah, I know. Well, let's talk about Spot. I don't think I have an image for Spot, but let's talk about Spot.
You don't have a Spot image?
I don't think you sent me a Spot image.
Oh.
It's a major.
Scott helped me with images again. Oops, did I?
Spot is probably alongside Porthos, one of the other most beloved animals here, until we got to Star Trek Discovery. But a lot of folks mention Spot. They mentioned the Ode to Spot, Data's
poem. How do you not mention Spot? Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, and Spot is like the original Star Trek pet, even though it happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and Zahir says the obvious answer is Spot, and the obvious answer to the question, favorite Star Trek pet. He really helps Data explore his humanity, patience, companionship, two beings without human emotions. Well said, Zahir. And this is really interesting. Do we get an explanation for why Data does get Spot?
It just turns up, which is weird because it just pops up in the one episode early, and it's gray. It's a gray Abyssinian or Ethiopian. There's debate, and it's male. He refers to it as male, and then it's like it goes away. And Brannon is kind of the one that brings Spot back because he wants to play with it as a data reflection mirror concept thing, and then they get just weirder and wackier with it until they play with it. And oh, look, Spot's. They don't ever talk about Spot's gender because I think it's usually neutral, but then suddenly it's a she because it's having kittens. And yeah, somebody had said something about doesn't something happen to Spot when they all de-evolve with the T cell in the.
Oh right.
Yeah.
What happens to Spot?
Thank you for asking me because I forgot. I remembered something. I'll look it up, or somebody. By the time I refresh, someone's
gonna yell at us. Spot becomes a people.
For the love of God, Spot becomes a Tyrannosaurus.
I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm trying to figure it out here.
So they should have had at least one scene of Captain Picard feeding Livingston fish food.
So, Spot kind of turns up, and I think Spot is probably part of Data's plan to explore humanity. But what's so cool about Spot is Spot reveals a lot about other characters too, like Worf's reaction to Spot.
Right.
You know, Geordi. I think Geordi gets scratched by Spot. If that's correct, it's just really nice to see how the other characters also react to animals. Doesn't Barclay have a scene with Spot too?
I think so. Well,
we'll get to Barclay. Yeah. Yeah. I really liked I really liked Spot. But there's probably two more pets from TNG we should talk about. So Steve says,
I just realized I could have done a whole. I interviewed the pet handler for Critters of the Cinema that did all the animals. Here's a fun mini K3 fact in Hollywood. When you see animals on screen, the animal handler that they hire, that's the purview of the prop master.
oh,
In the production, it's the prop guy or gal who hires the animals. So,
huh.
the early years it alternated. And the first time you saw two things, the first time you saw Spot and it was a gray Abyssinian, whatever, and supposedly male. It's been tracked. I can't remember. I didn't have any contact, but it's out there. Anyway, it was somebody that Joe Longo, when they were alternating prop people. And then when DS9 came along and Joe Longo was full time on DS9, Alan Sims went from alternating to being full time. And so when they made Spot a big deal and it was Alan's turn, number one, they couldn't find a cat really to match the first. The first cat had died by then. They couldn't really find a good match for it. So they were like, oh, it's been 2 years. No one's going to remember. And they just went with a new thing and then stuck with it, which is why. And you could headcanon it that Data, it was a different cat or whatever, that he just called Spot all the time, which is what some people have used to explain why the gender changed. But it was a guy with a company called Critters of the Cinema, and I've gone blank on his name. But anyway, it's more just like they do with kid actors and especially babies. They had more than one cat because they needed it to do different things, and
Right.
there were several that they had training. But I met both of them, and I have photos of both of them. Monster and Brandy were the two. Monster was so named because it was active, and whenever they wanted Spot to get up and do active things, they used Monster. And when they just wanted Spot to sit there and be on camera and not get up and fight the camera, in fact, fight the actors, that was without being drugged. That was Brandy. And they had some other ones that were in training, just like Porthos was a beagle named Windy, and then Breeze, or am I backwards? Windy and Breezy were the two beagles that were mostly. Oh gosh, it's been a while. Breezy, I think Breezy was the main beagle, and they had a second one. But anyway, Spot was mainly two, depending what they wanted it to do. And then there were some by the time of Generations, they were bringing along 3 and 4 more because they thought there'd be this whole Spot the Cat industry. And
Spot the Cat industry.
They want to expand the audition pool. Anyway,
So Charlotte has an answer for us. Charlotte says you should have sent him Iguana Spot from that episode that I shall not name, lest Ali read it out loud in that voice. I think you mean the episode titled Genesis. Charlotte, I think that's what you're going for there.
I was trying not to go there, but yeah. Anyway.
And Christina says no one ever mentions Tasha Yar's cat.
I was going to, but I think somebody else mentioned it, but yes, Christina, you just did too. Well, here's another one. What about Worf's pet Targ?
Yeah.
That he remembers.
Yeah. Now, a little fact I learned last night is in Star Trek 3 that it's
the pet Targs have 6-inch fangs. No, I'm kidding.
Well, that pet is credited in the movie as Monster Dog, not a Targ. So, question for you, Larry: do Klingons have monster dogs and Targs, or are Targs monster dogs? That's what it translates to.
Star Trek 3, you're talking about Kruge's thing. Yeah, I think there were a lot of people that wanted that to be a Targ, but then we kind of decided not to be, because it's almost reptilian-ish.
Yeah,
and the Targs look clearly mammalian, mostly,
Yeah. So it's a monster dog. So those are definitely different things. And then Charlotte also says on the topic of Spot, Barclay is the only other crew member besides Data that Spot likes, which I totally see. That totally works. 2 more TNG pets I want to just mention. Steve says Picard is Q's favorite pet. And Larry, let's talk about
Steve. Steve, have you been with us before?
Maybe I think Steve's been with us before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah. And then just a quick one here. The odd pet, O'Brien's tarantula. What's the story here? Well, the in canon story is didn't O'Brien get the tarantula to help him overcome his fear of spiders? Was that the case?
Yeah, it's a little bit of hey, I've got a fear too. Let me show you something. It's a little, human insight story there.
Yeah, so I like the idea of exposure here that O'Brien was facing his fears.
A Lycosian spider, which lets us know that other planets
Ah,
have arachnids too. It's like
yes.
the old thing of it can't just be, it's got to be the Aldorian brandy, or it's got to be
Right,
the
right. Or,
alien planet,
like
soup.
betazoid flu, not just like
Yeah,
normal flu. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, totally. Um, so
Angeles fever. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think I could ever have a pet tarantula. I have a friend who has a pet tarantula, and I'm just like, why? But um,
Tarantulas need love too, or
no,
maybe
they
they
do,
don't.
they do. I mean, this kind of speaks to pets and culture. Our relationship to pets is very much based in cultural ideas of those animals. Like
Mm.
cats, cat memes are very popular in the United States, but in Mexico, llama memes are more popular. And in China, they have other animals that they're very popular. Like it, I was doing some research on this actually. Goat memes are kind of
This
popular
is
in.
like if Monty Python was just being created now, there'd be a whole sketch on llama memes. I'm sorry, it's just like I just
Well, I just to say here that different cultures, different communities have different beliefs about cats, about dogs, about llamas, about
right.
chickens, about goats, about iguanas, about spiders. If you just look at cats, the ancient Egyptians thought they were kind of like divine. So I can see how I definitely see how people love tarantulas, and I definitely can see how different cultures in Star Trek would view animals very differently. A good
Well,
example is T'Pol. T'Pol, who finds dogs really aversive, partially because of the smell. So,
so what
um,
does that mean? Sullets have no smell? I'd not thought of this whole concept until you just said this. The cultural view of pets. Apparently, Klingons have no problem with it.
I think
Apparently, Walkers have no problem with it.
I think it's not that they don't have smell. I think it's the smells that you're used to and accustomed to. And this also gets to anxiety, aversion, and disgust. My mother-in-law hates dogs. She got bit by a dog when she was very young.
Oh,
And she's had this lifelong fear of dogs that she has no desire to overcome. Otherwise,
this is like my daughter-in-law and peacocks. But go ahead.
yeah, 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 yeah. So, disgust, anxiety, these kind of different things would impact it. So you can imagine being a Vulcan and growing up on Vulcan, and being very familiar with the smells of the local animals, and then you go to another planet and you see animals from that planet, and you're like, whoa! It's kind of like when if you do ever go to a zoo, you notice very strong smells that you're probably not accustomed to. I think it's just like that. Um,
It's
yeah,
probably a lot of well, thinking of things that the more time goes by, the more we revise our thinking about. Zoos are one of them, but it's also forced a big evolution in zoos, and a lot of them,
yeah,
if they don't have the room and wherewithal to do something besides a big, fiberglass cage to
yeah.
stick three tigers into or lions, if they can't have a big open range like the LA Zoo has been trying to modify to, for some of the bigger animals, then they go out of business or they try not to do anything or they just focus on smaller and try to give them an environment that's bigger.
Yeah.
But
Well, that relates to the conversation we had last week about the cage, and
speaking of
uh,
being literal,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah. I know, right? Um, and I know it's a bit controversial among conservationists and animal lovers, the role of zoos, and and most zoos are really not equipped
Right.
to really provide that level of that compassionate level
Yeah, a
of an
realistic environment.
environment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a non-cruel space.
yeah,
It's yeah.
yeah. So there's that whole issue.
So I
Um,
just saw Jared's comment here. Does Bashir count as a pet for Miles?
Oh gosh.
No, but
I
that
think it would
counts.
go the other way around.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anything. Um, Speaking of DS9,
I was
Larry.
gonna say,
Uh,
speaking of DS9, this is the one that I was like, huh, huh. Bashir notwithstanding, they're on two fronts. But you know what? When you said what about DS9, I had one image pop into my mind immediately. I don't know if it did for anybody else.
this one.
Yeah, that one. And it's only just like one joke. It's a Godfather homage ripoff. Yes, it's a joke visual when Quark is Negus for about 47 seconds. But it was the mini K3 on that. Remember the Gilvo, the endangered last of its kind um, thing that Alexander talks about, or no, it's what's his name? That Kivas Fajo, I think, has the alien, the one of a kind. Anyway, that he's got on his lap. That's the same puppet thing, basically, as the Gilvan thing that was the endangered species on Next Generation. Just quick. Anyway, but I don't know. Does anybody else have any other non-humanoid bipedal pet ideas?
Well,
from
we
DS?
just got a few comments. David said Bashir is Garrick's pet,
Yes.
which Charlotte concurred with. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
so DS9 is actually pretty pet light, I would say, for being a space station and exploring family relationships.
They were such a big throwback. They were all original series fanboys, so that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Maybe that makes sense. They're kind of going back. Yeah. I'm actually kind of surprised that because it is a space station, it does explore families and relationships. And, the Ciscos don't really have a pet. The O'Briens we know do, but we don't see it. We don't really. We don't see it. Maybe it is because DS9 was written by a lot of TOS fans.
I don't think that was. It's not like a conscious decision. I'm just thinking maybe it was just in the water for them.
Yeah, maybe Nathaniel is bringing up the Vorta and the Jem'Hadar. Maybe we could say that those are the founders' pets. Maybe it's a little bit of a stretch.
Oh, does a leader of a country call his army his pet?
Yeah. So if we move forward here, Larry, Voyager did have our captain. This might be our first captain pet that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
But we clearly have a pet right over here.
Yeah.
Now, we never get to see Molly, I don't think.
Past this pic, unless I don't think there's a flashback. I think this is it.
No. And I love how Janeway took this family portrait in uniform, too. But
this
yeah.
is their goodbye day. This is the day she left.
Oh, was it?
To go. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just saying.
That would make sense to me.
That's my headcanon. That's their goodbye day.
It's good headcanon. But we know that Janeway has
so much. Boom. Yeah.
We know that Janeway has Molly, and that she rescued her from a pound on Taurus Ceti 4. So I love that Janeway rescued a dog, and I also love that dogs are sort of everywhere humans are.
Well, it's like the fact that there's still that we have to have rescues for animals is telling too. But
that's a bit of a bummer that we actually need that. Oh my gosh! And as Tate reminds us, Molly was pregnant when she left. Oh wow, yeah. That's sad. Boy, that's really sad. Yes, Larry?
I'm just mad that I can't. I'm just looking for something that should be right in front of me, and I'm just mad that I can't find it. I was just trying to juxtapose Data's day when O'Brien gets married. I'm sorry, I've been stuck on Christina the Spider for a while, and I was just trying to think. Realm of Fear, he brings out Christina to console Barclay with his fear of transporter beaming, right? And I was just trying to think if he has Christina before or after, which is beginning of 6th season, And I was just trying to put Data's day in. They get married before they go to DS9, which is midway through the 6th season. So obviously, so anyway, I was just trying to think. So I think I was like, was Kiko letting Miles keep Christina, or did that go away? Was that part of the big marriage arrangement? By the time they had kids.
I could see Keiko being like, nah, no, we're not going to do this.
I'm a biologist, but not with the kids around, no, or something.
Yeah, I could.
It's too hard to take a spider with us to a stupid space station.
Well,
I love Keiko.
I mean, also, how long do tarantulas live?
Oh well, this was a lycosan. Tarantulas are known for their exceedingly long lifespan.
Right. There you go. There is the explanation. Yeah.
Texture, not. Yeah. Okay.
We moving forward.
So Molly, I don't mean to slight Janeway and Voyager by not mentioning Molly. So Molly. Okay.
Molly. Yeah, and let's move to Generations here.
No, this is creepy.
Oh no, we're not moving to Generation. You're right.
Maybe I was clicking my camera on and off to undo it.
Okay, well we're back on live. I have no idea what happened, but Larry, I prematurely displayed a K3 image, and the warp core exploded. Everything. You paused. We went off air. We're back here.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened, but anyways. On the topic of Voyager, there was another animal, another pet we saw in Voyager. It just happened to be in the Alpha Quadrant. And that is Barclay's pet, Neelix.
Pet cat. Yeah.
So
there's mentioned in relation to Spot. Anyway, you can tell that Barclay must have been affected by his experiences with Spot, I think, or something. Or maybe it was
100%.
Yeah, or maybe it was even, and maybe this was stated. It was Deanna's suggestion to him to have an animal. I don't know. It would be great headcanon if it wasn't.
Well, I think there's a very strong reason why Barclay might have Neelix. I think it's pretty weird that he named him Neelix. Kind of tells you a little bit about the way he started.
Did it make you laugh?
It did.
Okay, well that was the reason.
Yeah, it does definitely work there. I'll talk about it in the counselor's log why I think Barclay might have his cat. And then I think Larry, we just have 2 animals left to talk about.
Actually, it's a great animation fan. Brian Fuller or Brandon or somebody must have been a great animation fan because I could see this whole new franchise called Neelix the Cat.
Yeah,
the wonderful cat. You're okay. I'm sorry. That's too old, and I'm frozen again.
You're frozen again. Yes.
It's my. This is my punishment for really bad puns. I was trying to do an homage to Felix the cat, only it was Neelix the cat. So we'll see.
Cairo says, "I love when the Doctor goes into Barclay's Voyager hologram and comes out saying, Neelix doesn't purr." It's a great tidbit. Let's go into. We just got a couple other pets we want to talk about. Lower decks. If we talk about lower decks,
please cover me up.
I'm covering up the S.
Okay,
there.
I'm going to back out and back. Clicking does not do anything, so I'm going. Oh,
you're back.
I am back. That's very weird.
So if we talk about the dog, did this dog have a name, Larry?
It was dog.
It was dog. Yeah. My family had a dog when I was 1 or 2 years old, and my brother named the dog Boy, as in come here, boy. So it's kind of the same kind of thinking, like name the dog dog. This is my brother. Yeah, okay. My brother named the dog.
And he'd been a racist for how long?
Well, that's a different. We won't get into that. So, this dog was genetically engineered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know what more to say about this dog other than
it was like the Telosian method. We had no manual to go by, so we just threw some cool stuff in.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very unusual dog that is capable of unusual powers. What happens to that dog at the end of
Apparently,
that episode?
Orions don't have pet dogs.
No, no.
She had no idea. Yeah.
What
They
happens to
take
the?
it, it goes up. Remember, it's a misfit, and they take it to the planet of misfit toys. I mean, people, humanoid, the
Oh,
farm.
right.
They take it to the farm. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah.
So,
So there's that dog. I don't know what more to say about that dog.
the less said, the no. Everyone, it got sympathy. It had sympathy. I mean, it was sympathetically treated. It wasn't just the butt of all jokes. Only
I
enough.
mean, it does. It does. Like, yeah, there's actually stuff we can say. It brings up questions about genetic engineering. It brings up questions about cloning, about altering genes, and
Well, it brings up when a pet does not work out for whatever reason.
yeah, that's true.
And what are the outcomes you have? And she basically took it to an old misfit dog, a pet rescue. I mean, it was life forms in general, and there were a lot of sentient beings there too. So on one hand, but that dog was pretty smart.
Yeah. Well,
It knew
Yeah.
knew how to turn into a cube and roll by and get a laugh.
it does. You bring up a good point, Larry. It does bring up concerns about when people might get a pet for the wrong reason, or they might not be in the place in their life to really be able to
Or the place in their
care.
life changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They might not be in the place to really care for the animal. We had a couple of pet birds when I was in elementary school, and I was not very good at taking. I was a little kid, but I do remember now
There's no
looking back at.
excuse.
I remember looking back, I didn't really contribute to their care at all. Um, and I thought they were really cool and I liked having them, but I didn't feed them. I didn't clean up the cage. I didn't do any of that kind of stuff at all. Um, and yeah, sometimes kids really want a pet, but they aren't really prepared for the responsibility of it. And there's a mismatch there. And that can be really not good for the animals. It is quite a big responsibility. So that episode kind of brings up some of that stuff. Last but not least, a pet that is an animal that is treated like a queen. Star Trek Discovery has given us probably the greatest cat
The
since
modern
Spot.
eras. Well, since number one came on like gangbusters, and then only showed in one maybe episode, then definitely. I always want to say grunge for some reason. Grudge. I'm not even a Kurt Cobain fan, but anyway, Grudge has become the queen of modern day Star Trek pets, obviously, and we'll be back in the next season. They've
And
already
we'll be back. Yeah.
yeah, there've already been Instagram photo leaks, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, she's awesome. She was a great cat. I don't know what at this point in the show. I'm not sure what else to say.
We're expecting it to like do some kind of like an ISIS type reveal. Cat. Oh, look, it became human and saved a day in one episode. Or knew a formula, or pushed a button, or did something.
Right.
Hit the comm badge at the right time.
Right. Charlotte brings up a great comment that we could probably spend a lot of time debating here. Charlotte says all domestic animals are a result of human interference and breeding. As a result, they're dependent on us for survival, and it takes our responsibility to care for them. I think Charlotte, that's pretty well said over there. And it also, not only do we have a responsibility to animals that we've domesticated, but we also have a responsibility to not have wild animals for many reasons. And Larry, this gets back to the pandemic as well. I think there's a good chance that COVID-19, the virus that causes COVID-19, potentially came from human and multiple wild animal interactions that should never have occurred. Where a virus jumps from one species to another, picks up a mutation that now makes it very dangerous to humans. We need to let wild animals be wild, and we need to conserve their space and not not enter their space. There are a lot of viruses out there that are out in the animal kingdom that we should stay very far away from. Let them be wild, and there's a lot here. We haven't even talked about pet stores and a lot of the complexity around that, and what happens to animals that aren't purchased at pet stores.
Right.
So there's a lot of ethics that get involved with this conversation, actually.
Yeah, yeah. I want to say one thing real quick because I saw somebody poked me on it. 'Cause in my head, I had forgotten this aspect. I was thinking about Bilby's cat, Chester, that's in the Bilby episode, and I totally blanked on the fact that not only does Bilby killed, but the whole point at the ending is that O'Brien takes Chester back home, and then they even refer to Chester later on in Molly and Time's Orphan. So actually, technically, we had a regular in the cast with a pet, and it's O'Brien, and it's post Christina, at least, if not. So yes, there was a cat on DS9, at least for some part, and the kids enjoyed playing with Chester the cat. So the gray tabby, whatever, long haired. So yeah, and somebody popped up. I should thank whoever it was that poked me about it, but my memory, and now you'll probably jump up and say that was me. So as you should. But yeah. So anyway, we've kind of traipsed through all the basic series here.
I think so.
And the chat has.
Yeah. So let's dive into the counselor's log. This is the part of the show where I do a little bit of a deeper dive into some of the mental health and psychological themes, and I think this is going to kind of explain why Barkley probably has that cat. There's a great study I found titled Cardiovascular Reactivity in the Presence of Pets, Friends, and Spouses, The Truth About Cats and Dogs, which is just an amazing academic journal title right over there. So basically what they did is they threw 240 people into this experiment where they intentionally stressed them out. And they looked at how long it took for their cardiovascular system, for their heart rate, for all of these things, all of the signs of stress to get back to normal. So put people in a situation, intentionally stress them out, and then see how long it takes them to get back to their regular feeling. And the people were put into different. They're put into these different conditions. They were either alone, with a pet, with a friend, or with a spouse, or with a pet and a friend, or a pet and a spouse. And what they found is the people that took this, it took the longest for people to get back to normal when they were with their spouse. It took them, they got back to normal faster when they were alone, but the fastest when they were with a pet. And there's a lot of research here that show
normal. No, I'm sorry.
How they were normal is defined as how they were before they got intentionally stressed.
Right.
And there's a few ways you can intentionally stress people. One is by intentionally exposing them to very, very cold water. It'll kind of trigger that stress response. Anyways, this is a long way of saying that for some reason, it seems like the presence of a pet does help people manage stress better. And to the point where in 2013, the American Heart Association, they issued a scientific statement saying that pet ownership, particularly having a dog, although this research, as it's mentioned, was done on dog and cat owners, was associated with a lower risk of heart disease, though it cautioned almost all of the research was correlational. So what this means is like a lot of the research that's done on people who have pets has shown that they manage stress better. They're less stress. It's really good for their hearts. But we're not sure 100% if there's something different about people who do want cats and dogs and pets versus people who don't want them. That's what it means by correlational. There is some research that has like randomly assigned people to the presence of an animal or not the presence of an animal. And it seems like even for brief encounters, being around an animal can be very soothing. So what might be going on here? Well, what's probably happening, Larry, the reason why it took people longer to recover from stress when they were around their spouse than when they were alone or with a pet, and the pet had the fastest time to get back to pre-stress levels. It's probably that because the animals aren't judging you, the animals aren't criticizing you, and or there's no perceived judgment. And this is one of the things I think a lot of pet owners talk about is the unconditional love or support that they might receive from animals. That animal, especially domesticated animals, dogs in particular are very good at reading human emotions, and they know when we might be having a hard time.
Would you call that empathic or some kind of degree of empathy?
It is empathic, and it is this it is a mutualistic relationship, right? Like they need us, and we sort of need them, and we've adapted to life together, all the animals that we've domesticated. And
thousands of years, yeah,
over thousands of years, yeah. And they don't really judge us the way that we think other humans might be judging us. There's a lot of cool research that has shown this. That there was this big German and Australian study that looked at medical records and found that over 10,000 participants, the people who owned a pet were less likely to make doctor visits. So there's a lot of research like this, that having a pet is likely better for your health. It's better for your cardiovascular health. People need less medical support. But we still don't know why do some people get pets and why don't others, and is there a correlation versus causation issue here?
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about. I'll have a quick little away mission in a bit, but that's probably what's going on here with pets. Larry, I'd love to turn it over to you.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick before we get any further along. Okay, well, okay.
No, go ahead.
No, I was looking at the chat. I've felt behind, but so much good stuff is in the chat today. Charlotte said there was a study done in recent years that showed women's heart rate slowed down just from petting bunnies, which was interesting specificity. But a lot of people talking about the mental health connection and from personal experience. Victoria says she adopted her first dog when she was having some mental health issues and definitely helped rescue her. Melanie just more bluntly says, yes, my cats keep me from losing my shit. A lot of people saying that they have, their dogs, their cats, everybody vouching for that, which I guess is kind of thing. And I just had one thought when you were talking about the effects that these kinds of studies that show this, the leading scientists of Starfleet will talk about how tribbles have a tranquilizing effect on the human nervous system, and apparently Vulcans too.
There's since we're on this topic, there's been just wonderful comments
because you can grab them and show. So
yeah, there's wonderful comments here. Zahir says, as an unapologetic cat person, I must speak. Cats are absolutely capable of empathy and unconditional love. That's absolutely right, Zahir. And Zahir mentioned earlier having an allergy to cats, which I'm sorry to hear. That must be really difficult, especially as a cat lover. But this gets back to like culture, anxiety, disgust, and allergies. All of these things do impact your approach to animals. And Cairo says, my interpretation is that pets distract you as well, even from stress, whereas alone or with a spouse, you may need to reflect on that stressful situation. Absolutely, Cairo. And the other thing that that happens here too, Heidi says dog owners get more exercise because they go out on walks, and dogs often are a way for dog owners to start talking to each other. So there is research that has shown pet ownership can actually reduce loneliness, and it also regulates your schedule a bit. You have to wake up at a certain time, take care of your pet, feed them. Caring for another life form can have a lot of schedule and ritual making and all of that sort of stuff. And then Charlotte says, "You clearly have never been judged by a rabbit, Ollie. My rabbits judge me all the time, but it's cool. I welcome my servitor to my furry little overlords." And Phil says, "Rabbits are Earth's tribbles." Absolutely, Phil. Wonderful, wonderful comments here as always. Larry, let's refire up that.
I'm sure they'd look at us and say, "What's up, Doc?" Okay, so K3. So this got me thinking. I was trying to go backstage, and I know somewhere over the years I could probably point to dogs and cats and maybe horses, something unique like with a lot of the creators, but they weren't coming up to me. So I went, okay, familiar faces, yes. But as far as a backstage factor, I wanted to start off and say one of the most interesting little stories that we can go front of the camera, behind the camera, is the one you started to show a little bit ago. And someone in chat mentioned, what about Kirk and his dog, Butler in Generations, retired Kirk? And yes. So we've got a Great Dane here. Now here's the mini K3 about this within K3. So Ron,
are you doing K3 Inception, Larry?
Yes.
This is dangerous.
Bear with me. We're going to push the envelope of science. So in the script, which was Ron and Brandon, Ron Moore, Brandon Braga wrote the script and gave Kirk a dog. Another thing about, oh, look, it's radical and he's retired and, okay, trying to shake things up and show that it's a different life. This is in the Nexus, but still, it's supposedly Kirk's real life echoed here. And he has a Great Dane there, big dog, named Butler. Two things. One, the script originally had it named Jake was his dog, which Ron Moore named for a dog of his own that had just recently passed. So he had just given the dog the name Jake. When they did the show on set, not that it's a big part of the plot, Shatner just said, no, I want to call the dog Butler because he had a dog that had recently passed. So it was like an homage to that. Now, I was looking for a picture. I haven't had a chance to ask him directly, but I'm thinking that Butler may not have been a Great Dane because if you put the second picture up, apparently, that's tiny. I thought I sent you.
I'll make it big.
Okay, yay.
There we go.
So that's Shatner and his first wife, Gloria. That's the mother of his three daughters. But Shatner had a lifelong thing for Dobermans, and he had a lot of Doberman. There are you can find tons of pictures of him throughout the years with a bunch of Dobermans. But anyway, I don't know this one's name, but it's obviously the 60s. This is obviously original series time. Love those red-orange socks too, by the way, Bill.
I was gonna say his outfit is it is very fashionable. I would it's a cool outfit.
It's amazing to see those two people in those clothes and that dog in front of that are obviously 60s in front of a building that you still see all over the place around LA. But so there's Shatner and his Dobermans. So behind the scenes, he's, and then of course he raises horses, and somebody might argue whether that's pet or not, or a business or whatever. But he has his charity horse show for kids, and he brings kids and animals together. And he's done that for years. But as far as, going beyond that, a lot of people, if you're big DeForest Kelley fans, for my second shot here, Dee was very much an animal person. When he died, their charities were for the North Shore Animal Rescue Animal League, and they had dogs. He and Caroline had dogs and cats. So this is Cheers, the little dog there, but also his friend Chris.
Is Cheers a Havanese?
I think it's the long-haired little one.
Yeah.
If you know that, then that's good. I was trying to figure out if that was a breed or if that was a mutt of some kind. But anyway, that's Cheer. He had several dogs. This was a great picture. This was from a TV Guide photo spread. And that's Myrtle the turtle. Wound up with and had for years and years and years and years. But anyway. So
as you do with turtles.
Yes. But as you forget tarantulas. Alien tarantulas. So, but you would expect that if Dee was a big thing. Now, Leonard, just original big three here. Leonard was they had pets and animals, and he had kids and all that, and his first wife that when they were raised, Adam and all that. But here's the thing, and somebody mentioned this in the chat. I was like, shh, don't say anything. I forget who it was, but you know who you were. Mentioned this, but for about a year or two, as a goofy thing you do when you first have money in stardom, like in 68, 69, you know what I mean?
I know totally what you mean.
And you were talking about changing attitudes about this. So this is all kind of interesting now, but it's in history context. Can you put up the last one there? If you did not know this, for about 2 years, Leonard owned a pet store in Canoga Park here in the Valley. In the West Valley. It was called, I mean, the actual sign is down there in the bottom. Leonard Nimoy's Pet Pad. So not only is it the 60s, but it's very much the 60s. And he only had it for a year or two and it went out of business. And apparently I was doing some research and it's right next to a theater. In that one picture, that's a Photoshop title, the Nimoy's Pet Shop. But next to it, there's a theater there with movies listed. Anyway, that today is a beauty shop. So the pet shop didn't last long. And yes, today we look at pet. I mean, he even talks about. I don't know if our Germans can read that, but the one with the one in color with the orange trim.
Yeah,
that was in some German magazine apparently. But
let me see if I can make it even bigger in case anyone is interested.
It's translated online, but you can see it was an old traditional pet shop there with the orange wall, the cages, inset in. They had, but apparently they had exotic animals.
Well, I see the elephant there.
Yeah, which I thought was maybe just a stunt picture, but it may, or they may have, if they didn't have them in the retail, like the brick and mortar place, they may have had access to, like he may have seen it as an industry thing where they could get animals for.
I mean,
for sure.
that would explain why he went out of business.
which there's a whole revolution in the industry back. If you look, before say the 90s, there was a lot of animal abuse on film sets, or people just didn't care. They're just animals. Just throw, kill the horses in the Ben-Hur chariot race. Well, we lost them, or whatever, or the Tarzan movies, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then they've had the whole revolution there. Now there's an animal person from the ASPCA or somebody from the Humane Society. There's some person that's there just to keep an eye on filming. And here's all the protocols and practice you have to do with your animal. And animal handlers have to be licensed and have to be, not cruel when they come barreling up. We need the animal to look hungry on set, so we're going to starve it for a day, so that the dog will eat the Alpo for Ed McMahon Live. They can't do that. I'm sorry, guys. I'm referring to Tonight Show here, but they have all kinds of regulations that way. But the idea that it's just a whack today, hopefully it comes across as looking wacky, not like, oh my God, Leonard had puppy mill. But that was 1969, and our views of things have changed. So anyway, I just wanted to throw those out there. So there's some K3, at least with some of our favorite actors and animals. Well, doesn't surprise me at all that that Shatner is a big dog guy, but that Dee had all kinds of just fun little.
Yeah, our big three original series folks seem to all love animals there. Speaking of animals, and let's talk about penguins. Larry.
Oh yeah, everybody. So this is why I'm a little kerfumped today. There is a virtual convention that's normally a live con that went virtual last year in the first throes of lockdown. And it's virtual again. Penguicon is nominally out of Central Michigan, and it's virtual. It's actually been going the last 2 or 3 days. I've been so my head's been down working so hard that I haven't talked about it much. But I've got a blog post up. The easiest thing to say is there is a small. It's like $10, and it goes through tomorrow. And there's a lot of virtual cons. It's sci-fi, and it's also makers and coders. And so, if you're a prop person or a cosplayer or whatever, or know people, it's the fan group. It's very fanish. It's a nonprofit. So anyway, I was a guest of honor to be live last year. And when it went virtual, I was guest of honor for the virtual. And it's still that way. And maybe next year we can do it live. But right now it's happening this weekend. And today, Life Support Live right now is an official panel program part of the con. So I don't know if we ever did have anybody come over, but if you were here, hi, and say something in the chat if you're still with us. But I'm going to be there twice more. I'm on a regular panel. This is my blog. If you want to get the details, go to LarryNemecek.com. read today's blog post. But two more things today at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. Europeans, that's 9 and 10. I'm on this media sci-fi panel. Okay. And then I'm going to do an Ask Me Anything, which is just me taking all comers. So it'll be a little bit like Tuesday Live, but it's going to be a Zoom. And I was going to put that here. Before we're done, I'll just put the Zoom. You guys are trustable. They've got it behind a security leak. They had some different, 2 or 3 different ways of getting into their panels. But if you are interested or you want to see anything else that they're doing, go to my website. The links are there to get to their full schedule and all of that and get access. But I'll put for anybody here that wants to come in, you have to do that to get to the panel. I'll put the link here in a second for my Zoom room. If any of you all want to join us here in a couple of hours at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern, I think. No, 3 Pacific, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. Because I was going to say, wait, it was 11 UK and midnight Europe. So anyway. So
Time
if
zones
you
are hard.
want to drop by, bop in later on, I'd love to see you. I have no idea what the turnout will be. So we'll see that. But anyway, just throwing that out for today.
Cool. Thank you, Larry. And I have a very quick away mission for you all today. This is the part of the show where I give you some take-home messages about how you can apply what we're talking about to your own life. Larry, this was a hard one for me. Like it's like, okay, you either have a pet, and my away mission will be love, take care, support your pet, or you don't have a pet and you have very good reasons. You don't want a pet. You can't have a pet. You whatever your reasons are. So I was kind of thinking like, and then there's a pandemic, so your options of doing things are very limited. So I was thinking like, where can I draw some inspiration? I found this program called Reading Education Assistance Dogs. It's the acronym is READ, and it's a program where they bring trained therapeutic dogs, and what that means is these dogs have been trained to really help people with very difficult kind of emotions that they might be going through. And these dogs go to different libraries and they help kids who are struggling with literacy. And what the research on this program has shown is reading to a dog helps people learn literacy. So like, why might that be? Well, it gets back to that same idea of the dog is not judging the way you're reading, and it gives you an opportunity to practice reading out loud and reading to someone else in a way that you feel not judged and supported. But the other impact of this research is not only can reading to an animal improve your literacy skills, but the other thing here is brief encounters with animals can often have some type of meaningful impact on you. So one thing that you all can do is, even if you don't have a pet, but you do love animals, is think about if there are opportunities for you to get some brief encounters with them. For me, I find, now they're not pets, and now I'm getting into the topic of biophilia, which is like love of nature, and how healthy nature is. But for me, living in California, I love going to the beach and hearing the seagulls and seeing the seagulls, and sometimes seeing little what are those called, Larry? The little crabs that live right under the sand crabs. They live right under the sand. Yeah. Just
the little California beach crabs.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sure that's the name. For me, just interacting with, just being near animals in that way does make me feel a little bit connected to a larger ecosystem, and it can be quite helpful and healing for me. So even if you don't have a pet, even if you don't take care of an animal, think if there is an animal in your life that you can be near. My daughter loves going to one of my friends' homes, and they have 2 cats, and she just loves being near those cats. And those cats really don't like being near my 3.5-year-old daughter, and they kind of run around with each other. But I do think it's important for us to have some connection with the other species that we share a planet with. And with that, I want to open up the hailing frequencies here. And I want to start with a question, Larry, that I can't believe we did not answer yet. Do Dr. Trek and Dr. Ali currently have pets of their own?
And you were just saying.
Yeah. You want to take this one first, Larry, and then I'll answer it?
Not currently. So here's the thing. When I grew up, we had dogs. We had in town when I was real little in Norman, we had a little mutt dog, and then it was my older brother's. Really, it was mine. And then all the time I grew up, we either had German Shepherds or we had mutts, some of both. And then my older brother and his wife had Shih Tzus, and had one. They bred them, but they always had one or two for pets, and had a couple and had offspring and all that. And my mom had one for a while, and then. But all the time I was college, all the years, my 20s and 30s, I didn't have an apartment living. I didn't have the time for a pet, but I also didn't want to give a pet. I wanted to have, when I had a yard for a pet, that's what I wanted to. And I was a dog person. I'll just say it. I didn't have much use for cats. Now in college, my oldest best friend, Kevin, who did a lot of my artwork, who occasionally is with us at times, he had cats, and he had an infamous cat when we were seniors. There was a found feral cat that he tamed named Sama, which was short for Samurai. And it was a black cat. It was an infamous cat that livened he and my friend Cody's apartment and became infamous beyond our apartment. But and then he had for several years after that. But I was just not. My experience with cats was kind of like they were kind of cold. So I'm just saying, I didn't have pets at all. I was married. We were on the move when I was married, and I was an instant dad with stepkids. And we were like every 2 or 3 years we were moving up and moving around. And then when we came to California, LA, we had an apartment we had a big apartment, but for 2 or 3 years, when we bought a house. The first time we bought a house, I was like, okay, I'm in a house. We have a backyard. We have kids. Now's the time to have a pet. And we did. We had a couple of birds for a while, and we had a dog and a cat. The cat was – we had 2 cats from the Star Trek family. Oh, my gosh, I hadn't thought of this in ages, and I've just gone blank on her name. The woman who was like the assistant to post-production, they changed every year or two. And she had a couple of cats. And we took them, a brother and a sister, who were a little problematic, but the sister survived, had a litter, and we gave the litter homes, and the best cat of the litter we had for 15 years. Sometimes I talk about Schneider, our dog cat, they were all born on Janet's predecessor's wedding day, and we named this one for family. Totally changed my view of what a cat could be. Other ones in that litter totally reinforced what cats could be. Especially crazy golden ones, striped cats. But Schneider was more of a dog than a cat, and he was better than half the dogs I've had. So I loved him, and he passed. He came with us when we downsized and went back to an apartment, which I know was probably miserable for him. And then he died within a year or two of that happening. And our crazy little dog was a rescue dog that had a good life, and then needed to be. And then needed for us to end it out of mercy, and we had that Trini, but yeah, I've had dogs as a kid, and we had pets all the years we had kids, especially we had pets, and we talked once or twice about getting something that was apartment savvy now, but we just like, no, let's just not. But I did see somebody in the chat, probably more than once, said if you can't have pets where you are for whatever reason. Volunteering at a pet rescue or a pet place is a good thing to do. So that's my pet history. So, and we had 2 horses along the way. 2.
You had 2 horses?
We had a horse that died. It was an older mare that died.
This is in Oklahoma, or this is here?
Oh, in Oklahoma. No, when I was a kid.
Okay.
Yeah, in Oklahoma, out on our acreage when I grew up. Yeah, when we had the 2 and 3 German Shepherds and a mutt dog. But no, we had one horse when I was really young from my older brother, and she died giving birth to a mare because she was kind of old. And then we had Soccer. That was Gypsy. And then we had Soccer like when I was in junior high for a while. For several years. So
Larry, I had no idea. I had no idea you have quite a long history with a lot. It sounds like a lot of
My
animals
grandpa
that.
lived down the road, had a little dog that would go up walking with him. Little dog that had no business being on a farm, but would go up with him walking in the pasture when he had to go up and come back. So yeah.
That's
And the dog right in front of my grandma, they were like a quarter of the road down from us, quarter of the mile down from us. And right across was this, it was all pasture, but there was this place where the culvert dumped out and it was wet. And there were a lot of like reed, there was a big stand of kind of reedy, I don't know what you call it. Anyway, for some reason, it was the dog dumping magnet. And in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, when people would get rid of a dog, before there were rescues and adoption places, people would just take dogs out and dump them, right? And my grandma would take them in and find homes. And one of them she kept, which was a weird little dog. It was different breeds. Anyway, she called it Beepy for whatever reason. And after my grandpa's dog, Snippy, little dog, died, then she had Beepy for a while. But I'm thinking about this. She was like right next to the dog dumping capital of that part of the county. But she always she'd take them in and feed them and then try to find them a home. So anyway.
That's amazing. I had no idea you have such a long and loving history with so many animals. To answer the question,
dumb monkeys, Ollie. What can I say?
I mentioned Boy, which was the lab that my family had. I have no memories of Boy because I was like 1 year old when.
You were a boy.
Yeah, I was a little boy. And then we also had a couple of birds when I was more in late elementary, sometime in elementary school. I don't remember. And then nothing for a long time. And then a friend of mine had a cat that I would take care of often in grad school, and I really loved that cat. And then when I was in New York, my wife and I were godparents to a dog that we took care of a lot. Her name was Maji, and we loved that dog. She's probably the first animal I really have just so fundamentally loved. And she was a Havanese. She was a little Havanese who thought she was a massive
That's why
big
you
dog.
recognize.
Yeah. I think that was a Havanese. I could be wrong, but I loved her. I loved her so much. She unexpectedly died a couple of years ago. She just had this heart failure. She was really young. Should have lived a much longer life. And so where I'm at now, I love dogs and cats. My wife is allergic to cats, so a cat is probably not in our future. But maybe a dog is. And right now we're waiting for my daughter to get a little bit older because I want her to know the responsibility and to be able to help raise and love and be there for a dog. And so hopefully we'll have a dog in the future. And I'm just waiting for my daughter to be old enough so that it's not a pet. It is a companion and a member of the family that she is helping to raise. So that's kind of what I'm waiting for. Some comments I want to highlight, Larry.
Oh, please do. Yeah. It's been
so
a great day for chat, guys.
Yeah, oh my
Everybody's
gosh. We should talk about pets all the time. People have so many comments. These are great. Zahir says fostering is an option if you're not ready for a lifelong commitment. And he also says recommend visiting your local animal shelter and seeing if they'll let you volunteer as a socializer. I haven't gone since COVID, but it helps. So that's another low commitment
you know
option.
what? When there's natural disasters, I've never the culture of Southern California in fire times maybe it's this way in hurricane areas. Tornadoes would happen so fast it was kind of pointless unless you had a lot of damage long term. But when fires are like slow to, like you see them coming and people are like or they're on fire alert and they're out of their homes for a long time. And I'm in a horse area of LA here. There's like from Burbank and up and north and over through these canyons, there's a lot of horse country. And there are horse rescues, like when there's fire danger and people have to move their horses, there are designated places to take horses. It's amazing. I had no idea that infrastructure was there, but they've got it. And so you may look into supporting places that deal with when there is a disaster, think about it. But if you're in a place where there's support structure for dealing with animals especially the larger animals, but any of the animals, when there's evacuations have to happen because of disasters, you might look at that too. Which probably, if there's an existing animal place, it's probably set up to help that. But it's something else. It's another wrinkle to think about how you can help even if you can't do something on your own 24/7.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really great point. Charlotte says, I always say hi to animals that I run into on hikes, except birds. Birds are out to kill me, and I fear them. You know, Charlotte, what's funny is when I was in college, a bird flew into my head. Yeah, it hit me right here, and Larry.
Oh, that you meant like in one ear and out the other into your head. I was like,
it hit me right here, and then it bounced off, and it flew away. Thank goodness it hit me sort of on the side and not beak first, because then I would have probably needed to get some shots. I did not. But I feel you that on that, Charlotte. Some birds have, that bird was targeting me. Victoria says...
Hitchcockian.
Victoria says the downside, there's a downside to pets. They break our hearts when they leave us. And says that I had a cat that lived for 23 years, a nice long life, but not long enough for me. I still miss her. I still miss Maji, Victoria. I completely understand. Larry, I'm sure you feel the same way about it.
Yeah. Schneider is just, it was something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I hate to say love. I just like appreciate. So we had a dog. Trini was this little rat terrier, which wasn't even an official breed until recently, apparently, and had a bad leg. My older stepson wanted to call him Tripod, and I'm like, no, that's too mean. Why don't we call him Trini, like Trini Lopez? And it's kind of like Latin-y sounding, and you can still have the tri, but it's not cruel. And they're like, okay. So we had Trini, we had Schneider for ages, and Trini was like a yapper, and I was like, okay, but my youngest son just loved her. And her? Yeah. I went through a whole thing where, here's the thing for everybody. In my brain, in my head canon, I never had to challenge it. Like cats were feminine and dogs were masculine, even though I'd had feminine dogs, bitches, some might say. But in my head, now that I had a dog and a cat, just referring to them, like the cat was always her and the dog was always he, but it was like our cat was a male. And it drove everybody in the family crazy that I would say for a year or two. And finally, I just got to where I would say, if I wasn't saying Schneider, I'd say, come here, Bud. I would just like come up with the generic, not Bud as a name, but Bud as in like a masculine, generic name, or Guy. I would say, come here, Bud, come here, Guy. It's like just to train myself that Schneider was a male. But I finally did. But there'd be like a squirrel. We'd have stuff on the back deck cleaning house, and there'd be a rat or a squirrel in a pile of something, and they both knew it. And Schneider would be just sitting there going, yip, 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 yip. Meanwhile, Schneider was just sitting over there rolling his eyes, and then saw the rat, or I forget what this was one day, takes off and runs over to a tree and is trying to go up the tree or whatever, and went over and was treeing the rat or the squirrel, whatever it was, while Schneider was still barking at the pile of something that had left. That was kind of encapsulated the thing. So I was always, okay, I would put up with the dumb dog, bless her heart. But Schneider, I was just like, wow. And Schneider never did a litter pan. Schneider always went outside to do his business. We never had to mess with until the last year.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. A couple more comments I want to just highlight here.
I didn't dislike cats. I just thought cats were not for me. And to this day, Janet will say, Schneider changed her mind about cats.
Linda says, I was talking earlier about how even brief encounters with animals can have an impact on us. And Linda says, I had a brief encounter with an English setter pup yesterday, and I am still smiling. Linda, there's when I lived in DC for grad school, there was a big giant snowstorm, and I remember going out and just taking a lot of photographs and enjoying it. And this black lab came up to me and just had the biggest smile on his face. And his name was Hunter. And I had this lovely moment with Hunter, and then the owner came up too. I was like, is this a stray dog? Because it was just all white, and it was just, I was in the woods, and I'm like, does this dog just live out here? And I had this lovely moment with Hunter. I took this beautiful picture of Hunter. I love this picture so much. And it was probably 15 minutes I spent with that dog, Larry, and that dog still thinking of Hunter in that moment. It still makes me smile. So I completely understand where you're coming from, Linda. And then Heidi says, my hamsters helped me through the worst time in my life. And Heidi says, I have a lot of people wanting to buy hamsters at the start of the pandemic. I breed pet hamsters because giving the kids a pet is a way to keep them occupied. But since that meant having people I don't know in my apartment, that was a no. So I definitely get where you're coming from, Heidi. So all sizes and all breeds and all species, animals can have a profound effect on our lives.
Well, the chat is just all full of everybody sharing all their pet stories. So
I love it. Larry,
Christoph saying that gender assignment on cat dogs is part of Germanic language. So okay,
yeah. I did not know that. Folks, we need your help figuring out what to talk about next week. We haven't. This episode was a request from all of you, from one comment last week. Yeah, and then we're like, that's a great idea. Let's definitely do that. And so we would love to hear your thoughts on what we should cover next week. So Larry, I'm going to do the thing. Let us know in the comments below in the doobly-doos if you have an idea of what we should be covering next week.
What podcast says that, doodly-doos?
It's the Vlog Brothers on YouTube, John and Hank Green. They say that. We need our own thing. Let us know in the subspace transmission below. Like, how's that? Does that work for you?
The SST space? I don't know. We'll think about it.
I don't know. We'll think about it. So as I start to play the sad music right over here, Larry, we want to thank Scott, as always, for editing these episodes for the podcast. We want to thank Jared for cleaning up the thumbnails and the descriptions, and Scott and Jared for moderating, making sure that this is all nice and supportive. Larry, what's going on in Trekland this week? Besides PenguinCon.
Doing the stuff today. The chat, I put I think Scott put in a link for my calendar, but I also put in the link. I put the direct Zoom link in. Maybe I should do it. Maybe it's still in my memory and I can do it. I'll put the direct link in for the Zoom meeting at 3 o'clock. So like in 3 hours, a little under 3 hours, 3 Pacific. So there it is again. I think I just did it. Boom. That's Scott. Am I still here?
You're still here.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I thought I froze again.
No.
Okay, here we go. It's there. Okay. Anyway, if anybody can drop by, that's. I'll leave it there. Just keep it simple. And we've got some life support stuff. The store. Thank you, Scott, for putting it in there. My other stuff is in there too, if you're interested. But we've got some life support T-shirts and mugs like this and some other stuff with the drinking game conveniently on the back. So okay.
Yeah, awesome. I've got I had a new episode of the Psych Show come out this week. Real Psychologist Plays Never Have I Ever, where it's me answering some of the most awkward and strange questions I've ever received from you all. This is an episode I recorded last April and I finally got to releasing. So you can, if you want a fun little laugh and learn a little bit more about psychology and mental health, check out that episode. I'll have some new stuff coming out this week too, but until then, you can follow me on social media at Olimatu. Larry, where can people find more of you?
LarryNemechek.com, at Larry Nemechek on Twitter, the same as the YouTube channel, and my Instagram is Larry Nemechek's Trekland, same as the Facebook. So, boom.
Awesome. Yeah. And until then, folks, we keep sharing your comments about what we should cover next week. I'm seeing them appear over here.
Well, if you're not on the Facebook page, get to the Facebook page. We'll have a post there. We're bringing our Discord page along, but we need to bring everybody along to it. So if you're there already, I'm sure we'll have it there.
Trek well, folks. Live long and prosper. Sorry! Eek!